it's so frustrating. The thing is, sometimes I heard that some people like sometimes the game is not set up. It's kind of your duty. Yeah, it's up. Hi, thank you so much for coming. Yeah. It's awesome to have you here. Yeah, thank you so much.
Is that Alice's?
Yeah. It was awesome to have you in. So I had a great experience, so I thought it would be awesome for everyone.
I sent you my presentation.
Okay, great.
I emailed it.
You just emailed it? Okay.
I sent you the Google.
Awesome.
So it should just be in your Google.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there it is. And then if you want to check if there's anything else you have.
All right, we're going to get started. The regular weekly meeting of the Senate of the Student Government Association is now in session. This meeting is being recorded live. Keith, can we please do roll call?
All right, Brandon Clark, Henry Marius, Muna, and that's it.
All right, awesome. And the chair would be in favor of a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second? All's in favor? Awesome. Can we please have the presents?
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Pretty much the same thing that should be coming down the line for everything else, but I should make an announcement to you all. So we are in the midst of figuring out some things with our own budget and how much money we have in the SGA account. So our treasurer, Nick, technically froze our accounts for at least a week until we can figure out what's happening. So we don't have any spending bills that are coming down the line, at least I don't think so. Probably not, well, definitely not this week because it's not on the agenda, but just be mindful of that for next week. We'll give you an update on how much money technically is left over, but I will say that there's just a lot of spending that we didn't do, but CLSI has done on our behalf that we weren't aware of. So we'll get some more transparency on that once we can figure out and key what's exactly is going on, but definitely this is something for you all to take up about what SGA should and should not be spending on things, particularly stuff around Get Involved, student involvement fairs, food expenses, etc. A lot of things just happen to come out of the account, and we just weren't aware of that at that time. So we're just trying to figure that out for you. No stress. We're not broke, but we do want to figure out what else is going on. As you all know, it is our wonderful Madam President's birthday today, so happy birthday to Kate. Watching the live stream, however, but definitely applaud her for all her hard work, and it's wonderful to be around for her 22nd birthday, which is awesome. As far as on the exec side, there's some more progress happening with Year of the Colgate Woman. I and JJ have been working really hard on that. Good thing for us, it seems like the President's Office and University Events is kind of like managing things, and so they'll be providing a pretty big part of the funding for that. So SGA is really more or less acting as a partner and really kind of like helping them program to students, which is really important, but a lot of good work is being done there. So thank you to all of the wonderful persons for serving on the Year of the Colgate Woman committees. It's pretty awesome thing you guys are doing. As far as, I explained financials. There is an event that's coming up. We'll put it in, I believe it's this weekend, but it's a senior event that SGA is like co-sponsoring with athletics as well to help celebrate the Year of the Colgate Woman. That'll be coming down the line in the group chat. We just have to wait to get approval from the communications office. It pertains to our logo for the event. As far as there's some changes, the constitutional changes are coming. We still have yet to meet our elections commissioner. We've been dealing with some other stuff, but that should be coming pretty quickly. We do know that you all have to get an elections manual passed, so expect that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We definitely want to get that off the table like before March hits, so it should be coming. What else are we working on? Tips training is something else that we're trying to address as well. That should be coming down the line also. A lot of red tape that we have to cut through. And in referral to the SGA roundtable that we had about a month ago now, we met on Sunday to kind of like talk about things that we took away from that. And I think kind of what needs to happen again is what we determined is that this is probably going to be more of a regular thing for SGA to have, because we technically are the only conduit that brings people together, and a lot of the students actually preferred for SGA to kind of be the facilitator of like those type of conversations across campus, which is something that we can do. I think that's part of us being a government, is being people, bringing people together. So that'll be something that'll be coming down the line as well. More or less, if you are interested in kind of like authoring that and putting that, codifying that into bylaws, it would be great to work with you on that. If you don't have a project that you want to do, or you kind of want to help learn how to write some more, hit me up, and I definitely would be more than willing to work with you on kind of like codifying the roundtable into our bylaws. I think I had one more project that I said that I was working on, and that's kind of like adding more advocacy to SGA. I'll talk more about that later. I just have to actually put pen to paper and write about that before I bring any big ideas to you all as far as that. But yeah, I think on the exec side, things are running well. A lot of projects, but again, we're still worried about our budget and our finances for right now. Then probably next week we should be in the clear. Okay. So, any questions? All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Is that our treasurer, please?
Hi, I'm Suki. I'm on the DAC. So just basically a rundown of what we did this week. So the Korean Culture Association brought a night market proposal in front of us. We denied it because normally they have a lot more detail about which groups are doing what for the night market, like who's like making what food. But here they just wanted money to allocate about $850 to each group, and then we weren't exactly sure, like they couldn't tell us what was going to be done with that $850, and normally they have a much more clear breakdown, so we denied that proposal. Turkey Beach Association brought the CIA Spring 2020 Festival in front of us. We tabled that proposal because there were some logistical issues, like we were concerned with the cost for food, we were concerned with the cost for red packets, and we were concerned with the tea budget. And they managed to fix all of those, so we passed that earlier this week. Broad Street Behind the Beat wanted funding. It was a very clear cut, very simple, like well laid out proposal. So we approved that one, and we approved the Spring 2020 ballet classes where the ballet group wants to bring Paris Wilcox to teach them ballet, and we approved that. And then Slush is up there. Any discrepancies you see, like for the Chief of Culture Club, it was mainly like when we looked at their sheet, they just typed in the wrong number, so we just corrected that for them. Yeah, everything else is pretty solid. Are there any questions?
Awesome, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Hi everyone. So the first thing, quick question. So for those of you who, for whom the governance board timing doesn't work, how many of you did, filled out the form? For how many of you did do the governance board timing system, the meeting times? Were you able to like fill out the form? Because I'll be looking at those forms like tonight, so that'll be like moving. So the second thing, if you could pull it up. So the project, it sounds like cliche almost by now, so I've been working on it since last semester, the end of last semester. Every single week I've been trying to ask people to sign up, but this is how it stands right now. We have around how many legislative sign-ups? I think 4 or maybe 5 or 6 maybe, whereas there are 40 of you. So I've been like trying to ask every single week, sign up, but if you could right away sign up for one shift right now and put your name in front of like the number on the left. The list goes on for you, so I'll know if someone doesn't sign up. You gotta do what you gotta do. And if there are like any conflicts, any concerns, or any questions, I could address something. Like what's the logistics like, or?
Where is the sheet?
So coop, you'll be tabling in the coop. If the table isn't set up. Oh, the sheet? It should be in the SGA folder. So you'll be tabling in the coop. If the table isn't set up, you can just ask CLSI for the table and also for this SGA banner. So you'll be
Does it matter what number we put our name next to? Should I just go
I realize.
crazy?
That's just to keep count,
Okay.
so that everyone signs up. And for some reason, if the week approaches and you realize that you have to go somewhere else, you have some other like commitments or something, some conflict, just shoot me an email instead of just taking your name off, so that I know that you couldn't go. And maybe I could ask someone else, just like so that I'm on the same page. You could have written that down there, so I can.
I'm sorry. I don't know.
Those take a while, but I just want to make sure that everyone does sign up. So it's 5 weeks and there are 8 like time slots every week. So it comes out to be 40. So like you just have to sign up for one thing.
Are we still doing like the topic of the week?
Yeah, so it'll be all advertised. So I can make, so there are no topics listed on the right. Yeah. It's already there. You could scroll
Oh,
to
okay, my bad.
the right.
Scroll to the right. With that
The topics are there before that we discuss.
Did you see how many people?
Because some of these people.
Yeah.
What about midterm recess?
Is it 14 to? I tried to take a week off, but.
Yeah, 'cause it's the 14th to the 22nd.
22nd. Okay, so don't sign up for that. I'll take that out later. So I shared also an FAQ Google Doc. So when you're holding those office hours, just populate that so you have like a consolidated kind of document of what the student wants. So if somebody wants to look at it to get like, ideas for new projects, they have like a place to go. Right, so I think I can leave it there. I'll press the rest of the 17 that they'll sign on. And that's all I got.
Awesome. All right, Gracie.
Hi, I don't really have much to report that's different from my report from last week, aside from the SBW application. It's due on Friday. On behalf of class council, we're signing up for a big event on Friday, as I talked about. But also, with you all in your lives outside of student government, which I know you all have, I really do recommend that you apply for SBW. They don't have a lot of applications, and it wouldn't be as fun if there wasn't stuff going on. So if you're in an organization that has a sponsored house or in a Greek letter organization, I would recommend you apply. It's due Friday, so please do so. Thank you.
Hi, I wrote a bill about committees, so that will be on the agenda for next week. Because there's about 40 of you, I came up with about 8 different committees that will have about 5 people each on them. Some of them are committees that we had last year, but others are completely new. So if anyone wants to see what I have already and help me edit it and be a sponsor, just find me after the meeting and I can show you what I worked on so far. But other than that, I don't have anything.
All right, and then if you don't attend your committee meeting, I get to call you out in front of the entire Senate, which is pretty awesome, but just make sure you attend your meeting so I don't have to embarrass you. And then we're working on meeting for the younger senators meeting either this Sunday or the next Sunday, and I'm gonna ask for a couple of the more experienced senators to come help and teach us newbies how to write bills. And then also we had to do a new mailing list for the people that went abroad, and so I believe I may have missed some of you on that mailing list. So if you did not get the agenda this week, please come to me so I can add you onto the mailing list for the future weeks. And speaking time, any speaking time? Okay. And please welcome John Pomilio, our Director of Sustainability.
Hey, a great week of work last week. I was in my office doing math and crunching numbers and in front of an Excel spreadsheet, and that to me is a really good week. Speaking in front of people, not so much. So bear with me here. I have a few slides, but it's really just to cue up a conversation. Okay, so I'll go through a few things. Hopefully I'll answer some questions that you may have along the way, but I really want this to be a dialogue. So if something comes up and you can't wait because you're bursting with enthusiasm, then please just put your arm up and I'll do my best. So I wanted to just give you really quickly, the trajectory of our sustainability program over the past few years. So it formally, I guess you could say it formally started in 2005 with the charging of what was then called the Environmental Council. So this was our former president, Rebecca Chop, who said, I would like to put a committee together, charge a committee of faculty, staff, and students to give me recommendations and a current assessment of how we're doing as a university to advance environmental issues in our operations and in our pedagogy. So it kind of started from that, and then something emerged in around 2007, 2008, where college and university presidents and chancellors were committing their universities to carbon neutrality. So at the time it was called the university, the ACU-PCC, the American College and University President's Climate Commitment. And there was a small group of presidents and chancellors that were reaching out to people across the country and saying, you should commit your university to climate change. It's a really big problem and we should demonstrate our leadership and do something about it. So in 2008, Rebecca Chop once again signed that commitment and committed Colgate University to carbon neutrality. So I wasn't here at that time because I was working at another university in Washington State as their director of sustainability, and I was among the first cohort of people to sign the commitment, and I was helping the institution kind of work through those issues. So I just happened to have the most bizarre skill that I was able to calculate an organizational greenhouse gas footprint. So I was one of the few probably in the country at the time who could do that. So when Colgate signed up for this, they needed somebody to be able to do that work. And I just happened to grow up right down the road here in East Utica. So, and I was looking forward to coming back to Central New York. So they had the position opening and I applied and I ended up becoming Colgate's first director of sustainability, and that was in 2009. So I came here with the commitment, kind of inherited it, and we had no idea what our carbon footprint was as a university, or any sort of plan to reduce that to meet the ultimate goal of carbon neutrality. And for that matter, we didn't even have a date. So it was all left on the table yet. So we signed the commitment in 2008, completed our first inventory of emissions in 2009. And then we had a change in presidents at the time, so the process of writing our climate action plan took a little longer than normal, simply because we really needed to get the buy-in of the new president whenever that person came in. Otherwise, they'd probably not have a sense of ownership over it. So a climate action plan is basically just looks at your inventory of emissions, and it's a roadmap to say how are we going to reduce our footprint over time. Does that make sense, everyone? I'm kind of giving you like the non-exciting parts of the work, but somebody has to do it. So, and then this is kind of what it looks like You know, I think the climate action plan itself was almost 100 pages with probably about 300 pages in appendices. It was a big document with a lot of numbers. So, and the reason why I mentioned that to you is because we have to remember that back at that time we were going through a really big economic downturn. So we had to demonstrate that this new body of work for the institution would not only reduce our carbon footprint over time, but it would save the university money. So I tried to bundle a whole bunch of projects together so that not one individual project was approved, because that individual project might come at a cost. But instead, the whole package together, some projects would never pay back, others would pay back, but in its entirety, it would have a return on investment for the university, and it would reduce our carbon footprint. So we kind of tried to make it as hard as possible for people to say no to it. And it got approved in 2011. It's a little hard to see this, I think, maybe, but those are just some of the projects that we listed. At the end of the day, the 5-year plan did what we thought it was going to do. So, which is good, because when you take the time to write a strategic plan or a plan, you would hope that at the end of the day it gets implemented. Well, in this case, it cost us what we thought it was going to cost us, and it reduced the amount of carbon we thought it was going to reduce. And we ended up implementing many of the projects that were on the list. And then some things that came up along the way as opportunities. So things that weren't on the original list, you know, like fume hood alarms and stuff like that, that don't grab the headlines, but they end up saving a lot of energy and reducing our carbon footprint along the way. The first sustainability and climate action plan expired. It ran its course, and then we published a new one back in 2017. The difference between the first one and the second one was that the first one, as I tried to highlight, was incredibly prescriptive. It was, we're doing this project, and this year it's going to cost this much, and it's going to have a return on investment that's going to look like this. And then we just multiplied that by 27 different approved projects over 5 years. This bicentennial plan was completely different. There were almost no specific projects. What we were trying to do in that plan was to integrate sustainability into our way of doing things. So that instead of building one LEED certified green building, Trudy, we would have green building standards, so that all of our buildings are LEED certified green buildings. Instead of investing in one thing through purchasing, for example, like carpeting was a big one. So we wanted to reduce our ecological and carbon footprints associated with the purchase of carpet on campus. We don't think about carpet often, but we replace a lot of it, and we do it so every year. So if we can purchase a type of carpet that's made out of recyclable material, that has no off-gassing, that is manufactured with the end in mind, but also with the reduction of ecological footprint, then you probably want to make that switch. Instead of doing a one-off thing like that, we developed an environmentally preferable purchasing policy. So this would be a policy that would dictate all of our purchasing as a university to say, are we paying attention to ecological and social issues when we're making our purchasing decisions as an organization? So those are just a couple of examples of the way we went from a prescriptive project-by-project plan to having it be more integrated. So we're trying to build a program that lasts, not like a flash in the pan kind of thing. As you all know, I hope, last year Colgate became the first college or university in New York to achieve carbon neutrality. And we were one of a handful in the country. There were a few that came just after us. So right now there's about 8 higher ed institutions in the nation that became carbon neutral. And there's going to be dozens more in the next few years. Altogether, there's over 600 colleges and universities that have made this commitment. Many of them will be achieving that by the 2025-2030 timeframe. We just had a pretty aggressive timeframe on that. So I'm gonna go off script. I've kind of been off script since it started, actually, but I'll just let you know what carbon neutrality is. I think I actually have a couple of slides here, but I'll just tell you, I'll talk you through it. So we gave ourselves 10 years. From the time we made the commitment, a couple of climate action plans, and then we figured let's implement as many projects as we can over the course of 10 years to reduce our carbon footprint as much as possible. And then whatever is left in 2019, we're gonna invest in offsets to counterbalance whatever emissions we either did not want to eliminate or we just basically could not eliminate. So that's what we did. So carbon neutrality, and I think this is important and I always emphasize this every chance I get, was never the end goal. It's a milestone along the way. So the work really continues because we still have almost half of our original footprint left. Does that make sense? So it's remarkable that we were able to reduce our carbon footprint by almost 50% in 10 years. There's very few other institutions that have even come close to that. And now what's left, we're investing in offsets, but we still have to reduce our whatever emissions we can. And this is the ongoing work. So there is no institution right now that is not putting out emissions in some way. So the biggest challenges for us are car travel, until we all go electric and that the grid is entirely carbon-free, we're always gonna have emissions associated with car travel. And then we fly a lot as a university. So until the airlines figure out some carbon neutral way to transport people, we're always gonna, until we come up with another mode to get us from country to country or place to place, we're gonna have a carbon footprint associated with air travel. We also, our backup fuel here is natural gas. So as long as we use natural gas, we're gonna have some footprint associated with that. So what we're trying to do is use offsets. Right now is a cost of carbon. So we know what a ton of carbon costs now. It's, well, according to last year, it's almost $8 a ton. So whenever we're evaluating projects that have a carbon output compared to a low carbon or a no carbon alternative, we always input the cost of carbon over the life of the project. And in some cases, that tips the balance towards a renewable energy or a low carbon option. We did this with Chapel House. We were trying to weigh, the university was trying to weigh the costs and benefits between running a natural gas line to Chapel House or installing geothermal energy, which had no carbon footprint. And we factored in the cost of carbon, and over the life of the project, we ended up going with the geothermal option. So it's saving probably about $20,000 a year in fuel costs, which will have a very nice payback. It's already payback. So every year that the energy continues to work properly, we're saving money that we would otherwise be spending on fuel. So, I won't bore you. These are just a few of the other types of projects that we implemented, that we continue to implement. There's just a list of some of our this is just a list of our peer institutions and where they are. So Colby, Middlebury, and Bowdoin all achieved carbon neutrality just ahead of us. And then there's a whole bunch of colleges coming behind us. Yeah, Cornell made a big announcement. I hear some people mentioning Cornell. Their carbon neutrality date was 2050. So they upped it by 15 years recently, and that was a big,
So it's 3.
what did I put?
That's a wrong line.
Oh, that's a real life. Yeah, no, it's 20. I was like, what's so funny about it? I was thinking, because they're a very large research institution, and there is no if you look at the list of all the schools that have achieved carbon neutrality earlier rather than later, there aren't any large research universities. So Cornell is actually, they're being quite aggressive, not with 3035, but with 2035. But actually Duke University is poised to be the first large research university in the country to achieve carbon neutrality. And they've been a great working partner with us. I spend a lot of time in conversations and working with Duke on certain initiatives. So they're really a good partner in this effort. This is just a very quick example of, you can see the cursor there. So this is the totals column, and this is what we were our baseline year. The dark green and the light green is where we reduced it in 2018. We're just getting the numbers back for 2019. I just need to verify them. They went way up. So our carbon footprint went up significantly. And the reason for that was our we underwent an upgrade on our wood chip facility. Does everyone know? I should mention it. So if you ever wondered how buildings are heated and cooled, or where your energy comes from to make the indoors comfortable for us, we have a heating plant that's over by Huntington Gym, right? And that heating plant uses two types of fuels. It uses wood chips, and it uses natural gas as our backup. So wood chips are considered carbon neutral. It's basically how we supply, where we get our wood chips from is it's the waste product from nearby mills, and we do a whole chain of custody to make sure that the forest management practices behind the wood chips are done in a sustainable, resourceful manner. And with that being done that way, the wood itself is considered a carbon neutral operation. It's on the short carbon cycle as opposed to the fossil carbon cycle. Natural gas is our backup to wood, but last year when we were renovating and upgrading our wood chip facility, we had to run fully on natural gas. And it just happened to be that the 2019 winter was the second coldest winter in the 10 years that we've been measuring this. We had almost 7,400 heating degree days, which made it a really cold winter. So with the colder winter and running on natural gas, our footprint ended up going up. We're back on cycle now, so I anticipate it'll be coming back down again. This is kind of our pie chart of our emissions. So buildings are still the #1 source of our emissions overall. And since Trudy, that was our first LEED certified building leadership in energy and environmental design. It means the building is designed and constructed with sustainability principles in mind. So we look at everything from the site to the building materials to the energy and water use to transportation in and around the building itself. And if we meet a whole bunch of criteria, then we get certified by the United States Green Building Council. So, when we did Trudy, it was a big stretch for our project management team. There was a ton of pushback on that. They felt like it was a waste of time and a waste of money because you have to submit all this paperwork, and it's about a $30,000 price tag to go through the certification. But when you think of the millions of dollars of building costs to go the extra mile, the true cost of a building is the operations and maintenance of it over the life of the building. It's not the initial cost, even though we get sticker shock. The cost of the building is the ownership of it after it's constructed. So between Trudy and Lathrop, we approved our green building standards that basically said every new building and major renovation will achieve LEED certification. And then we actually hit the pinnacle with Benton Hall. It received LEED Platinum, which is the highest possible rating. And then just a few months ago, it was awarded New York State's Green Building of the Year, which is a pretty big honor in this, when you think of all the buildings around the state that were constructed last year. These are just graphs showing where we started, the red line in 2009, and then how we reduced our footprint and then the offsets that took us the rest of the way there. I do want to just add that we've been able to overcome, we've been able to reduce our footprint while at the same time adding 200,000 square feet of new space. All those buildings, even if they're green, they take energy and resources to operate. And then we also added a few hundred additional students since 2009, and about 100 faculty and staff to support that. So we have more FTEs, 200,000 square foot of new building space, and at the same time we've been able to reduce our campus energy use, water use a little bit, and electricity use. So they have all come down. So I don't know how long that trend's gonna be able to continue. We have some big projects in the forecast, and we're doing the best we can to be as efficient as possible and use renewable energy where we can, but at some point we're just gonna build too much. And I think it'll overcome even our best efforts to be as efficient as possible. This is why we're really trying to promote and advocate carbon neutral and energy neutral buildings. So start with the idea that we can construct a new building and have it be energy and carbon neutral. I think we could get there. It would take a little extra effort, maybe a lot of extra effort, especially at first. But if we're serious about these goals and this sustainability effort, we almost have to do it. So right now, the project management team is undergoing, I think it's about a 6-week training session in passive solar design with basically those principles in mind about how to build a carbon and energy neutral building. So we'll stay tuned on all of that. So we undertook, Christina was a part of this, but we undertook a whole bunch of outreach sessions to try to engage people on carbon offsets. This is actually the smallest part of my work, but I think it gets the most attention. Like, people are just animated by the thought of offsets, like investing in projects off campus to reduce our carbon footprint on our behalf. But really what I'm focused in day to day is what can we do on campus to reduce our footprint? And we try a lot of different things. Most of them never happen or fail. It's just the nature of the business. And then we hope that a few proposals turn into projects that are successful. That's just kind of the way it works. But we try to be as responsible as possible along the way. I'm going to skip through all of that. And then I wanted to end by just telling you about a green revolving loan fund. So I was very excited that we finally got this implemented. I was advocating for this for about 7 or 8 years. I wish we could have started it when I first got here, because the way that the fund works is we set aside a pool of money, and the only way that money can be used is to invest in projects on campus that reduce our carbon footprint and have a return on investment. It cannot be used for anything else. It's earmarked just for sustainability projects on campus. When we make a decision to invest in a project and it has that return on investment, it returns 120%. So that way, when we make an investment, it increases in size over time. So we're trying to advertise this as the gift that sort of keeps on giving. And so far, we've received about $120,000 in donations to the Green Revolving Fund from our alumni. And we think there's going to be a lot more coming soon, simply because the class of 1970 is celebrating their 50th graduation anniversary, and they're earmarking their class gift towards this fund. So right now, to this date, we've invested in 4 different projects. We've spent over $1 million on these projects, but they're returning to the fund already. So at this moment, we have $700,000, give or take, in the fund that's available for investment in other projects. And we have a whole bunch of projects in the queue that we know are gonna reduce our carbon footprint and have a return on investment. Just a couple of those opportunities, we're really looking hard at K-Sky or library. The building runs very inefficiently and the lights are on all the time. We don't have good lighting controls and we actually don't have a good HVAC. We don't have good heating and cooling system in the building. So we're gonna upgrade all of that, which we think will have big savings. Olin Hall is a huge energy hub. We're gonna go in there and we're gonna end up investing in upgrades that have a nice return on investment, make the building more comfortable. And those are just a couple. We have a lot of others along the way. So I think I'll end my rambling there and see if you have any questions. Anything? About our sustainability, I talked about carbon, but I'm the director of sustainability. So I look at a lot of different things on campus. Yeah?
What are your new efforts to kind of combat like waste at Colgate, like in our dining halls, like the coop and Chilani and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've actually done quite a bit piecemeal over the years to try to reduce our waste. A lot of this happened before you arrived, so you may not know that at one time not too long ago, for example, we had trays in Frank Dining Hall, and you say, well, how does that reduce waste? But it reduced food waste by almost 30% overnight. And then we didn't really have a recycling program when I got here. So we had to invest in recycling, and we've got over $100,000 invested in recycling bins. So with that being said, I still think that this is an area where we have really come up short. So right now, students in environmental studies 390 are doing a campus-wide sort of assessment on the makeup of our waste. So they're going to be doing waste audits, and they're talking with campus stakeholders across the university to try to get a better idea about what are the barriers to doing a better job of waste reduction and recycling. So we're looking at things like a big thing, you know, in front of us here is we have to do a better job of composting, of actually collecting our food scraps and figuring out a better way to handle those other than sending them to the landfill. And we're looking at reuse, you know, we've experimented, for example, at Donovan's Pub, you know, those of you who go there, you get a reusable takeout container. It's a fairly new program for us. We just started it a few years ago. Other than that, before that, everything was throwaway. And then in the areas where we can either incorporate that or we have to figure out another solution would be like in the coop and in the Chobani Cafe. Those are kind of flagrant fouls. I look at it like that, simply because there's a lot of waste generated out of there. So our path to a more sustainable future is anything but linear. You know, it'd be nice to keep going in the right direction, but there's a lot of people making decisions on campus, and every so often we make a mistake. We have an oversight, or we just simply don't follow our own values or principles, or we're out competed. This is just cheaper to do it this way, or it's easier to do it this way. So we're trying, like, managing organizational change is a difficult process. I think we're in the right direction, but we've got a ways to go yet. And I think waste is probably the single issue that causes, you know, it needs a lot of work. And then right behind you, you had a question.
Yeah, so the LEED certified building approach is so commendable, and I was wondering what it takes for a building to be LEED certified, and also why, like, curious about why Bentonville was platinum and then after that was gold again, and what, like, are the barriers that are important when getting the building a LEED certified building?
Yeah, so, you know, I think, so LEED certification, I'll start with that one. There's a whole bunch of, there's 5 categories, and they go around energy, water, site, building materials, transportation, more or less. And then underneath each of those headings, there's a whole bunch of actions that you can take. And if you take some of those, any action you take, you receive points for. And if you accumulate enough points, then you hit one of the thresholds for certification. So Benton Hall was, our green building standards say that we're going to design and build and achieve LEED Silver certification. So Benton Hall really was a shock for us. We wanted to build a really beautiful, high-performing building, but at the beginning, we weren't striving for platinum. We were just trying to achieve silver. And then at some point, we realized, oh, we're well into gold. And then somebody raised the question, what would it take to actually get us to platinum? And luckily, it was still early enough in the process where we could pursue that. So what made that building incredibly special is this is a non-sexy side of sustainability. Like there's no big wind turbines or solar panels or anything like that that makes the building really sort of have those salient features of what we think of when we think of sustainability. But its envelope is amazing. The skin of the building, it's highly, it was the first building we ever had commissioned for its envelope. And we went way above and beyond to make sure there were no leaks in the building. The windows in the building are like this triple pane, they're super expensive windows that are super efficient. So we allow the daylight harvesting, the daylight, the views, all of that, but the windows almost serve as walls. But that cost us. But the building is running on almost no energy right now. We measure the performance of buildings in what's called the energy use index. It's basically the amount of energy it takes to operate the building per square foot. And we compare that across buildings, not only on campus, but across the nation. It's one of the highest performing buildings anywhere in its class. So we went way above, with the building envelope, I think is the one thing that really makes it kind of stand out from a performance level. And then the residence halls, why didn't we, achieving platinum is very hard. So those were two big buildings, and things that come up in a building project are time and money. How it's funded matters. So we did the best we could with that building, but at the end of the day, we weren't able, it became apparent halfway through that we were solid into gold, but achieving platinum was just not gonna happen with that building. I think we did make a mistake that's worth pointing out very early in the process. And I was mentioning earlier that Chapel House is it's run on geothermal energy. Well, think of where Chapel House is in comparison to the new residence halls. Not very far away. The geology underneath is about the same. And I think if we had given a little more time and effort, we could have had those buildings heated and cooled on geothermal energy. And I think that was a big mistake on our part. So it wasn't that we didn't propose it, it just, because of other competing needs and other desires of the building and then the donors and all that, they decided that wasn't going to be pursued at this time. And there was a bit of a pushback, so hopefully we don't make that mistake again without at least a good, honest assessment and evaluation of those types of options. It would have been a good investment. And then I think there was a question over here somewhere, and then that'll be the last one.
Are there any plans to put recycling bins in fraternities? Because I know they're like a source of they have a lot of cans.
Yeah. Yeah, so, it's not, so why, I always think about this, like why does recycling or waste management break down? Only a part of it is recycling bins. And then a part of it, the rest of this story is a whole lot of other factors. So when I mentioned before that I had I worked with a group of students and we went out and we did a full campus audit of where do we have recycling bins, where don't we have them, if we were to buy them, where would we put them? And we completely covered Broad Street, all the fraternities and sororities, all the apartments, all the townhouses, all the theme houses. They all had a full investment in recycling infrastructure. And then Christine and I were just talking about this actually before I came up here. But what ended up happening was we intended for that to be Colgate property more or less. And if they disappeared or became damaged, that there would be fees collected that could replace them over time. And that never happened. So what happened was the bins disappeared or got damaged in some cases, not all cases, and we didn't have the financing or the funding to replace them again. So I think that, you know, we have to, there's so many needs on campus that I have to try to prioritize how do we get this done at this point. This is a building right here that's on my sights as a priority. So I've got about an estimate of about $10,000 to $12,000 to outfit Person Hall, so that we can turn this building into a carry-in, carry-out building. We've implemented that in Alumni Hall, McGregory, Lathrop, Lawrence so far. Basically, classrooms don't have trash and recycling bins. Instead, what we did is invested in the Colgate recycling bins just out in centralized locations, with the idea that if you bring it into the classroom, bring it out afterwards. It reduces the amount of plastic liners, the amount of overall bins in the classrooms themselves, and it gives a sense of ownership for the students in the building. And it reduces our contamination rate because the centralized locations are pretty clear and easy to use. So, I try not to get too frustrated when I think about the state of recycling and waste management on this campus. I just try to undo it almost one thread at a time, and hopefully wake up someday and say, hey, we're actually doing really good at this now. But we're still not there yet. And this is where I could use your leadership across campus, not just on the waste management, but on all of these issues. Because you have a special set of eyes and you understand how campus works better than I ever will, because you're living it. You're here and you're seeing and doing things every day that I only often hear secondhand. So if you see an opportunity or have an idea for a solution, whether it's recycling or energy or any of that stuff, then we need to figure out a way where you feel a sense of ownership and responsibility to make those ideas heard, not just for my office, but around campus overall. Our administration, I think, is more responsive than others I've been a part of as far as listening to the student voice. So if this is an important issue to you and you see ideas for change, then just make that be known. And I think we can come a long way in a few years. I know because we already have. I'm really sorry about all the time that I spent up here. I hope that was worth it, though. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that was a really important point he made. As leaders on campus, it's our responsibility to look for ways and to potentially write up bills to make us a more sustainable campus. But thank you so much for coming, Mr. Benlilio. It's great to have you here. Alright, and so now with our new transparency liaison, we have to do an iClicker re-registration. So Adam, could you lead this for us, please?
I sent the picture on GroupMe, check it, enter your code.
Register.
If I don't see your name, then you're registered. I don't see your name.
I pressed the buttons.
sit down right next to you. Sorry.
Should be like oh, for sure.
Adam, let me know when we're all set.
Okay, just there's 6 people, also there's 7 people.
No, that's how it was, yeah.
Adam, we all set?
There's 30 out of 37. I don't know the names here. I wasn't prepared for it. This was the part of the trade. Oh, now it works. Cole? Yeah. You didn't. BDC? Sorry? Come to the spot. What? You have one? No. Who has B?
I think my
No, that's not you.
I should just go like this. I feel like it takes much longer.
Drive first ABA, that's what it says to do.
And then I'll just like tell you to scroll to the next one.
Oh yeah, when your name disappears. Okay, so yeah,
Do it slow, please.
Oh, sorry, man.
So it's fine.
Or maybe even roll it too.
Adam, how are you doing? You good? Let's take, there's probably some people out, let's get, if you haven't done it, you're not on there. What are you up to? Oh, okay.
there you go. Yeah, we'll do it later.
Yeah, anything, I just have the interest of time, if I click it's not working,
Yeah,
just do hands.
let's do hands.
This is good enough.
All right, can we do it by hand? Can we do it by hand? I think most people are gonna say. All right, up next is a proposal for two-factor authentication.
Yeah, so you guys remember last week's meeting, we met with the CIO and then the ITS chairperson, and we talked about two-factor authentication, and they made it pretty clear that it's pretty important for us in the future. And so I mentioned during that meeting that I asked a resolution would be helpful for them when they bring this proposal like to the faculty, because there might be some pushback against it because faculty like don't understand technology. There's a lot of the old. So basically, this is a resolution saying that we like unanimously support the implementation of two-factor authentication. And just to go through it real quick, we made some whereas statements. Ben and I and Matt kind of like spearheaded this, and then we also have some co-sponsors. So just thank you to everyone that helped out with this. It was pretty easy. We're just saying that we support two-factor authentication. But so basically, enhanced cybersecurity is vital for the continued function in universities, and Colgate relies obviously on digital networks for everything. And this means that a cyber breach of Colgate systems will compromise personal data and property of students, faculty, and staff, and that would be like really financially devastating. And if they crippled all of our online systems, that would probably hinder academic stuff and functions of everything. And then we just talk about Grinnell and Hamilton, who have been hacked by cyber predators. And I don't know if you guys remember, but they both said pretty explicitly that, Colgate definitely is targeted because these other schools that are like near us and similar to us are targeted. And then they also pretty explicitly said that had these schools had two-factor authentication across their networks, and they could have avoided these attacks. And then just further, other academic institutions like NYU and Chicago have also recently been implementing two-factor authentication. So with all that being said, the Senate of the SGA formally supports the implementation of two-factor authentication across all Colgate platforms and urges the faculty to do the same. And I know like some of us were talking about concerns about like this might be annoying for like printing and stuff like that, but I feel like I trust these people to like do it well, because they said it'd be like an 8-month thing where they like tested it and like made sure every single thing that would be an issue would be fleshed out by the time all students had to use it. So in terms of like concerns with that, I don't think we should have any. And I guess if you want to scroll down, basically, we are gonna, hopefully if we pass this today, we're gonna give it to the CIO and the head of the Committee on Information Technology, and they'll use that as part of their argument for the faculty to kind of sign on to this too. And I think it'll go a long way, because I think the faculty knows that we took the time to do this, and like that we support it, it'll definitely sway them. So.
And we definitely know more about technology than the rest of the company. But two-factor authentication is like very basic, and we don't have it here. And also, Colgate is a gold mine for hackers who can access, through our own Colgate accounts, they can access our social security numbers, our student IDs, our gate cache. So just think about all the things that Colgate has on us, and think that these hackers can actually access that if we don't have a firm security presence online.
As more schools implemented around us, we're becoming even more of a target. So I think by proposing this bill to faculty, just kind of showing the urgency so we can get this done as soon as possible.
So any questions before we vote?
I still don't get when the it happens. Like, is it just when we sign into a computer at the beginning?
I don't fully get it either. I imagine that.
I have a decent understanding. So when you sign up to Moodle and you put in your username and password, you'll get like a text and you have to put in a code. But that one time you sign in, you'll be able to get onto any other Colgate associated thing like Handshake. I don't know, any other time you need to put in your username and password, Colgate username and password. It's like a one-time sign-in.
For how long?
That's what I'm not quite sure. So if it's a personal computer, I think it should stay logged in, and so you don't have to do that every single time with your personal computer. But if you're going to Coop, I'm not sure how it works. I think you'll have to do it every time using a different computer.
I mean, the thing is, the implementation of 2FA is can be very different. It's just how they the IT department actually chooses to implement it is however they want to. So they probably will go for the most secure option that's also the most convenient for students.
Yeah, and I think I know the concept of trusted devices and browsers definitely will come into play. I mean we only know kind of what they talked to us about. We didn't do any further communicating, but basically what we're saying here is not like, oh, like we know exactly what we want it to be like, and like, we have to have it now, but we're basically signing off on them to start this like month-long or like 8-month-long process of, you know, figuring out how this should work best for students and like, you know, making it the ideal setup.
And I mean, think about it, like it's been implemented at NYU, it's been implemented at U Chicago, and you don't see like riots against two-factor authentication. I mean, obviously, like, it doesn't seem like there's that many complaints over there.
And they said that they would have, like, test it out on students and faculty and like make sure that there weren't issues. And, you know, even if there are minor inconveniences that come along, I think it's still such a small price to pay for not having like Colgate be crippled by a potential cyber attack. So, you know, I think it's definitely a pretty important resolution. It's not that complicated, but like definitely we want to make sure that we're supporting this and that faculty does too. So any other questions?
All right, are there any motions? Yep. All those, or is there a second? All those in favor? Let's go into voting procedure.
Okay, voting's on.
Which one's which?
It's better than just everything else.
No, he said we had 30 percent. So
We got that, that's okay. 32 for, 1 against, 1 abstaining. That's
Awesome.
94%.
And so now we're receiving a proposal to appeal the BAC's denial of the Canosione charity auction fundraiser.
Hello, I'll explain some things before we get to talking about this. As you may know, my name is Nick, I'm the SGA treasurer. So something that is new for this semester that you all ratified in the BAC procedure book is that clubs can appeal the BAC decision through Senate. If it comes back to me, we chat. We work together to come up with changes to a proposal or a way to present this to the Senate. And then the BAC co-treasurers will be able to talk to you as well, give you some background information as to why the event was denied. And then eventually you can ask questions to both the club and the co-treasurers. The other thing I want to say is that when it comes down to voting, you're going to be voting based on the same tenets that the BAC votes on. So what those are the quality of the event, non-event, the quantity of the event, non-event, things they've done in the past, the fiscal responsibility, so are they spending their money well, are they choosing the most expensive things, are they making sure that they're trying to be responsible with the money that they're spending, and also the adherence to the mission statement. So this is from Canosione, so I'll just read out their mission statement right now that I found. So the mission statement of Canosione Senior Honor Society is to inspire connection to Colgate's campus and the surrounding community by seeking to provide an interface between the community and students, promote the charitable and philanthropic efforts of area organizations as peer-selected stewards of the greater Colgate community. So the way this is going to work is Margot is going to come down. Jack isn't here, he's on campus, but she has somebody else who will help her. She'll basically go over why the proposal was denied. And then afterwards, Elle will come down, who's representing Canosione. She was the person who submitted the budget. And I'll come up here with her. She'll basically do most of the talking, but I can chime in if anything needs to. I do want to say, one, that I am a member of Canosione Senior Honor Society, so I've been doing my best. I'm would advocate for a club regardless of if I'm a member of it. I didn't submit this budget. The other thing is if you are a member of Canosione in Senate, we just ask that you do not vote, because in the BAC you wouldn't be able to vote if you are a member of an organization. Any questions about this vote? Yeah?
How would you know if someone is supposed to not vote?
I think it's kind of just
you have to, I trust you to have the integrity to take that position. Yes. The other thing is it'll just be, yeah, Chris.
Can you clarify if that means upcoming or?
Upcoming and current members of Kenosha Senior Honor Society. So affiliation with Kenosha Senior Honor Society, you will not be able to vote on this appeal. It needs a majority vote, similar to like if a budget was presented to you for over $35,000, it needs Senate approval, or for an appointment. It's kind of just like that type of style. Or any other any questions? I'm sure some will surface. This is the first time this has happened, so get ready. It's an imperfect process. Everything that works in government is imperfect. There's no perfect system, but this is how it's gonna go. So, Margot, if you'd like to come down and discuss, as well as Principal Michael is gonna come and talk about the initial proposal, why it was denied, and then we will go from there.
Okay, so as Nick said, Michael, who's on the BAC, do you want to, he's a senior.
I'm a senior.
Yeah. So we're gonna go over why the BAC voted the way that they did and kind of like our criteria for the denial. So I know that Al has made some current changes to the budget, so some of our points may not still hold, if that makes sense. So pretty much the vote was nobody said yes, there was one abstention, and 6 members said no. So our primary issue came from our tenets of fiscal responsibility and the quality and quantity of service. So firstly, I'm just going to talk about the fiscal responsibility aspect of it. So the success of the event, as it said in the budget proposal and in our meeting, was going to be determined from the amount of money that they were able to raise from the fundraiser, amongst other things. So the last few years' poor fundraising was claimed to be due to the Board of Trustees' absence from the event and lack of support for the event financially. So the event was strategically now scheduled the same weekend that the Board of Trustees are on campus, and more specifically at the Colgate Inn for a dinner. The plan, they said, was that President Casey was going to bring them to the auction after a dinner that they were having separately. This event was moved from the Hall of Presidents to the Colgate Inn, this seems like it's no longer targeting the student body, nor facilitating their attendance, rather the board's, and it also seems like the success of this event is dependent on the board's presence.
Okay, for specific line items, I think what stands out most is that for a budget of 9,000, they are allocating 3,500 for software for the auction and the bidding. From a financial responsibility aspect, it's unclear why this expense is so necessary, because everyone is going to be bidding in-house, and we know that traditional paper bidding cards may provide a similar service. We're not in any position to recommend the alternatives, but you do know that listing this on a Google Sheet, for example, would serve the same purpose of presenting it to those who are in there. One of the considerations for the software specifically is that it doesn't provide advantages to those that are outside, so everything is in-house. We understand that this line item was previously funded, but there was not a sufficient enough explanation as to its necessity for this particular event. Okay, and then there was a $510 request for decorations, which we judge to be unnecessary, especially since none of the auction items are tied to the flower-based theme of the event. It's not essentially integral to the success of the event.
Also, this is more fiscal responsibility and quality and quantity of service concerns. So the expected attendance for the event is 175, therefore the cost per person breaks down to $54.50. And in our last BAC meeting on February 9th, so this past Sunday, we upheld a vote that in rural areas such as Hamilton, New York, we recommend a $15 per person budget for dinners. We know that this $54 also includes software and decorations and room space and other things like that that would increase that cost, but still that's a big difference between $15 to $54. In addition, out of the 175 potential people in attendance at the event, it should be noted that there are 35 board members, 26 current and 26 new members of Kenosioni, some of whom are abroad, as well as faculty, staff, administrative, and town members who are all invited to this event, or at least we'll see advertisements for it. So overall, our concern was how much of the student activity fee will be spent on non-students. So, that was it. That was all that our grounds for it. Are there any immediate questions, or Nick? I mean, I don't know how this.
Yeah, so you can ask her any questions now. As like the process, as Elle talks, you can also ask questions as they arise. But yeah, so if there's any questions now.
Yes.
You like kind of touched on this. I'm still like a little confused. I know these events have been like happening the same exact way for like as long as Canosione has been around, and like this dispute is kind of unprecedented, I guess. So like, why? What's different this year? Like, what's caused this argument?
So I think that with every new BAC, there's new perspective, there's new opinions, and there's always new interpretations, as well as with each budget, there's someone else doing it. And I think that a lot of our concerns are about the movement of the event off campus to the Colgate Inn, and the fact that there's such an emphasis on targeting the Board of Trustees in an attempt to amend the relationships between it. So I think that part of it is that a lot of things that have happened are unprecedented, and that's why you are receiving an unprecedented reaction to it. Yes.
Yeah, just in addition to that, we also consider fiscal history. We spoke to them during the BAC meeting, and they told us that past events have not been very successful. They've actually, so funding for an event for 9,000 and receiving less than that doesn't seem, we're not looking at profit, but we're essentially giving money away for an event that doesn't get enough. So that's the fiscal history which we got from them. And that consideration is just in general, you have to be fiscally responsible when considering cost overall. So.
And I'm going to tap on that to that point. Going off of how they are currently going to judge the success of this event, their past, I don't know, however many events have not been successful. So, yes.
So is it a rule that like student organizations have to be like holding events for the students rather than?
No, but in the quality and quantity of service, we look at student impact. And since we are funded and only using student activities fees, we always try to look at the student impact and accessibility.
Okay. And that impact is not doesn't have to be directly immediate, but we have to show that there's a way that there's a way that that the advantage of the event impacts the students and also eventually impacts the COVID community. For some, it's very clear how it impacts the COVID community. For example, Dance Fest, a lot of people are available. I mean, a lot of people attend the event, but for some others, like the debate club, it's directly for the club members, but there's an eventual addition to the COVID community. So, just.
We'll start with you.
I might have missed this, but what were they raising money for?
The Oneida Nation.
Just to clarify our processes, we don't deny or approve based on the
charity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Everything, decisions that are made by the BAC and that will be made tonight are content neutral. So you won't be judging the content of the event, but the quality of the event, the quantity of the event, adherence to mission statement, and fiscal responsibility.
Yes.
So when you say it hasn't been successful in years past, does that mean that like we've spent more money than the fundraiser has raised?
Yes, and it's, and,
I would say the second question would be like, if that is the case, why would we do money for a fundraiser instead of just donating money directly?
I don't think that we can
we
donate money.
it's on our bylaws, we can donate.
Yeah, but we heard from Dean Cawthorn, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but that their auction in the past had not been, last year raised a certain amount of money that was below that cost, and then in the meeting, Elle did mention that a few years past it had been less than the cost, so I'll.
I have the numbers of the past 5 years that the auction has raised.
Yeah. Okay. Do you still have a question?
That is the same.
Okay. Any other questions right now? Okay.
How much did we get?
Do you want to come up?
Yeah.
So she has like some things to say. She also has the budget. So I think the way that this is going to work is like similar to like how they presented something. Then you can ask questions when she's done. So yeah, do you want to start with the budget or talk however you?
I guess I'll start with addressing the question that was just raised. Let me just make sure that you can see all of it. Okay, so last year the auction raised $4,506.77. The previous year, in 2018, it raised $4,999. In 2017, it raised $18,621.15. In 2016, it raised $33,017.
and in 2015 it reached $24,554. So it's definitely been a drop off in the past 2 years. Do you have a
Yeah,
question?
but how do those amounts compare to how much you guys took from the BAC? And what were your margins?
I can only see like last year's, or I only know off the top of my head what they were funded last year. It was roughly, well, it was $799 less than 8,100. So, or 80, it's more. So it's like roughly $9,000 was spent last year, and the event raised like $4,500.
And you don't know the numbers before that?
No, not off the top of my head. For how
Does
much
someone
we
have
used.
them? Could we?
I can look and get
Someone
involved.
come past years.
I mean, it's not like, I was just wondering if they're available. That would be useful.
Should I start with the budget, or?
You can start however you feel is
Okay. So I'll kind of go through some of the changes that we're making this year, and then a lot of that should address what's in the budget, and then if there are any questions about what's in the budget, just let me know. So, as Margot mentioned, we've changed a lot about how we're holding the auction event this year, largely because it hasn't done so well in the past 2 years. So I understand the concerns that are raised, but we've actively considered those in planning this year's auction event because we really do want to make it as successful an event as possible. So we've moved it to the Colgate Inn for a couple of reasons. The first is that it's significantly cheaper. So in 2019, all building related costs, so buildings and grounds work order and the rental for the tables and the linens and all of that jazz, that was about just shy of $1,900. This year, our fees for the Colgate Inn, like the site fee, the bar setup fee, the bartenders, the coat rack rental, anything that's not like food or decorations or paper goods or like raffle tickets, comes to just shy of $1,200. So including the special events cruiser that would bring students up the hill downtown. So even with adding that $250 cost, we're saving over $700 by hosting it at the Colgate Inn. So that's an attempt to make this event as fiscally responsible as possible. We're saving a lot of money. And this proposal that has been amended since we proposed it to the BAC is still nearly $800 cheaper than what was funded for the event last year. We're also hoping that the Colgate Inn will help us advertise the event, so they will help us reach an audience that is not necessarily reached through campus distribution emails and postering and social media tiles. They are able to advertise the event for the weeks approaching and reach a larger audience in Hamilton, as well as people who are dining that night can be very easily ushered to the auction event, which we hope will increase participation. We're also bringing the event downtown, which is more accessible for people who live downtown, seniors who live off campus, as well as faculty and staff members, professors, and just kind of anyone affiliated with Colgate or not, who live downtown in Hamilton and who could more readily access the event. Also, so I know that the Board of Trustees was a big preoccupation in our BAC meeting. I was given misinformation. I just found out that the Board of Trustees is not meeting that weekend, and instead the Alumni Council is meeting. I've confirmed that the Alumni Council is meeting with both President Casey and their online calendar. I don't know why I was told that the Board of Trustees would be meeting when they are not. Mistakes happen. I could only go off the information that I was given, and it was the wrong information, so I was operating under the fact that I thought that was true. So even though the Board of Trustees will not be there, the Alumni Council will be there. They're a larger group. They eat and stay at the Colgate Inn, so it would be a lot. It would just be very easy for them to come right to the event. So as much as this event is not for the Alumni Council, I think it would be a missed opportunity to not try to capitalize on the fact that adults with potentially more disposable income would be able to attend this event. So in addition to hoping that they might come because it's a little bit more convenient, we're also trying to get students to come. So we have the special events cruiser, which even in the budget is still less money than previous years and holding it in the Hall of Presidents. We also have a raffle. So every individual who comes to the auction event will be given a raffle ticket to win one item. So you do not have to spend a single penny at auction
and you could still come out a winner. We have not yet determined what that's going to be. I'm waiting until I collect and finalize every single auction item so that I can pick an item that would be appropriate to put up for that raffle, but I'm sure it'll be exciting, and also just like anything you could win without spending any money would be kind of nice. And then we're also having a section that is entirely for students. So these will be items that are either off limits or would be more enticing to students. So things like gift cards to local restaurants. And then since I met with the BAC, President Casey has put 2 auction items on the table. One of them is dinner and drinks at a Southampton's house for $12. And then another one is only for students. It's a champagne dinner at his house for 10 students. Only students can bid on that. That will be in the student section, so we're really hoping that that will drive students to come. So it should be noted also that the last time, President Casey has never put something just for students like that up at auction. And then the last time that President Casey put parties at his house, the auction did the best it's done in the past 5 years. That was the year in 2016 when it raised over $33,000. So it's a big deal that he's offering these items. I just secured those with him, so that's why they were not mentioned at the original.
And just to add, when we're discussing this, when that item was auctioned off, it raised $5,000 by itself.
Yeah.
Was that by students or was that by like adults?
So the student dinner has never been auctioned off by President Casey. So it was like, I'm presuming, I actually don't know who actually got that item, but it wasn't restricted to just students. And then finally, I just want to, I know that there's concern about the event costing more than it has raised in the past. I would not feel comfortable standing up here and promising that the event could raise a certain amount of money. I can say that I hope it raises a certain amount of money, and given the past years, I know that it might be a little bit discouraging, but given these new items and given that we're moving locations and kind of revamping how we're thinking about it with the student section and the raffle and the move to Colgate Inn, we're really hoping that these changes will kind of revitalize and put some life back into this event that has kind of fallen a little bit flat the past 2 years. There was also a question about Qtego, which is right here, which is line item 14, it's $3,500. So just some clarification on that. That's a flat fee, it can't be changed. That's just what they charge. So this includes all services to run the auction, including bringing a person on site the day of the auction to run the entire auction. So it's both software services and an individual here. The way that works is that we send them photos of all the auction items. They go online a week before the auction, so people on campus who plan to, or in the community and plan to attend the auction, you can go online and you can say, oh, this is gonna be at the auction, I'm really excited about that, and it might entice you to go. Also, something that I would like to correct from the information I had given the BAC is that I have since found out that you can bid online. So parents who are out of town or aren't locals, students off campus, people abroad, anyone who has access to this site can still bid. So it's both to help entice people who are local to attend, but also people who are a bit farther away can still participate through Qtego. So I hope that answers some questions.
But also, can you run the auction without Qtego?
Qtego has been involved in the auction running for the past many years. So they save us a lot of time and headache and hassle, and it's just been a part of the auction budget for years.
Since we used Qtego, have you used the online bidding before, or is it?
I have not personally.
It's been used.
But it's been used.
It has been.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there other questions?
I know it's hard to attribute the decrease in profits, I guess, over the past couple of years to a certain thing, but have you noticed a change in attendance, or do you think it's what's being auctioned off? Or I don't know if you can answer that.
So over the past few years, attendance has absolutely dropped off from everyone, from when we held it the same weekend as the Board of Trustees meeting, from them, from alumni, from like practically every aspect of campus. Attendance has dropped off, which is why we're making attempts to both like these things to bring in more students and to make it more accessible to people who live off campus, who don't live in the dorms up the hill, but we're still having the special events cruiser to bring people from up the hill down here. Also hosting it at the inn where it's more convenient for alumni. So we're trying our best to kind of address why, one potential reason why people from all, like, who have different relationships to Colgate, like why maybe they're not coming and how we can get them in the door. So. Yeah.
How much was allocated for this last year?
Last year, it was nearly $9,000 because it was 80.
Last year it was, in 2019, $9,866. In 2017, it was $10,545. That's all the data that we have.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, it's that $8,100 now.
Yes.
So it's substantially like $1,000.
It's yeah, I've shaved off over $1,400 from the original BAC proposal in light of the concerns that were.
And then it's still less expensive than the previous 2 years.
Yes. I've also reduced, originally we were budgeting $19.80 for food per person. We've reduced it to $15 of food per person, which matches what was allocated for food last year. I understand that now it's a little different because we're budgeting for other things besides food, but I've made an attempt to lower the cost of food.
Do you have other items secured, like other exciting items secured to auction off?
Yeah, we're in the process of collecting all of them. So we have things like signed sports memorabilia, gift cards, spa stays and treatments, stays at various hotels. Any other questions? Yeah?
So, I mean, you're definitely reaching out to a diverse, like, community, but, like, if we're talking about a bid war between the Board of Trustees and the students and the people of Hampton, don't you think the Board of Trustees would tend to win on this?
So for certain items, yes, but we're trying to amend that in ways that other years haven't by having a special student section, so that students cannot be outbid. That is something that previous classes has never happened. This will be the event's 23rd year, so we're really making, like, many of these like key aspects that we're looking for this event this year have never been done before, that we think will really help, like, bring life back into it.
When you say it's student only, does that include, like, when you say like online, how like parents can do it as well, or are these like literally only students can?
Only students.
Do you think that's really beneficial then to like the possible like profit when like students probably don't have necessarily that much money to bid?
Yeah.
Especially when like the like super rare thing that has gotten a lot of people to bid is only for students.
So we have two of the super rare things.
Okay.
One of them is just for students and the other one is not. President Casey has asked that one of them be just for students. He thinks that will be a really special event. Not all of our items will be just for students. The majority will not be just for students, but we are keeping like some for students. In previous years, there hasn't been a student section. Students have still participated and won.
Are there any questions for anybody else besides Ellen? Myself, Marco, Michael? I understand. Okay. Yeah.
Hearing this like new discussion about it and seeing the items that have been adjusted, do you guys have any like amendments to your concerns or anything else?
I don't think that that'd be fair to answer because I'm not a voting member of the BAC and not all the BAC is here, so we wouldn't be able to fully reflect their opinions, but good question.
Yeah, are there any motions?
Yeah, a motion for like a caucus.
There's a second on that?
5-minute caucus.
5-minute moderated. All those in favor of 5-minute or moderated caucus?
If you could have moderated caucus, you need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I said I just said
Moderated, right?
Yeah, moderated. It doesn't-
Wait, can we
I
do
don't
five
actually-
minute unmoderated caucus?
Yeah, let's just do an unmoderated caucus.
Okay, all those in, you said you want to speak now?
So you vote based on disruption, so you'll vote on moderating caucus first. And if that passes, then we don't need speaking time.
Okay, all those
Oh,
in
then
favor,
unmoderated.
all those in favor of an unmoderated 5-minute caucus?
Just sit outside in the hallway.
Okay, motion approved.
Also, yeah, can we like kick out all members of KOCC?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
everyone's in none, you
Can't do that, because they are part of the public. I don't know, Emily, you might want to check that.
isn't it like,
out.
yeah, isn't it close to
Also, anyone
because it's on voting.
It's not closed because we're not in voting procedure yet. If you enter voting procedure and then motion for an unmoderated caucus, then you can do that. But the people who presented can be asked to.
Okay. I just think.
Okay.
Alright, so what do people think?
I think we should give them another chance and see how they process
Wait, it's not moderated.
It's not moderated.
I was really impressed by like the effort to include students in this because from what I understood, one of the BAC's main concerns is that like this is making it inaccessible for students, but here they have like the proposal for a cruiser and they have a student-only section. I know they're
Yeah.
worried that that might decrease the
That's true.
profits, but I think the
They are in
intention,
like a
it's
tough
not like
situation though, because like either they have to say like, yes, we don't have enough students, or they don't have enough.
well, I'm sure that I'd imagine that the items going up for students aren't worth the
Yeah.
same amount of monies, and that is more targeted towards getting the attendance of the student body.
I honestly had just thought that like that the Brian Casey thing was only like that was the only one, which is also what I had that impression. So
I also think something that's important to note is that there's been like a lot of like harp on like the numbers and making it like more profitable, but this is like a philanthropic event, and I think that we should like be a little bit more lenient when we're talking about making money for like a philanthropic event, and also talking about like the impacts that are not monetary of an event like this, of awareness, especially like to students and alumni, of like the fact that we are on Oneida land, and like supporting like the fact that we have a lot to like give to them because of why we're here.
when we don't make money, does that go back?
Right, that's
to,
true.
do we tear ourselves back or does
It's
it
important to
stay?
consider that we're not also, I don't really think, supposed to be,
That's true.
that's not, we shouldn't be considering that,
You
and,
can't consider content.
I also have some problems voting against the BAC, I just think it's like, it's a big deal, they know what they're doing, and they have looked at
Could we table it until
so,
they maybe
they've
respond
looked at
back
so
to
many
like,
proposals.
if they respond back to like the other things that they've changed, I'd be curious to see what the BAC says.
It's like just us hearing a 10 or 5-10 minute
I just feel
per
underqualified to make
proposal,
this decision.
like they've been working and they've looked at this and had probably many discussion about this and decided to like almost unanimously like vote against it.
But the changes do seem
procedure
compelling.
currently in place, it's your job to vote on it right now.
Well, I guess my question is, why would you not just send the reworked plan back to the BAC? Like, why is it
Yeah,
in front of
that's
Senate?
kind of what I'm.
Like, that, I think, is my concern. You can rework something and send it back to the BAC, and I feel at this time that I would rather have the BAC reevaluate this, and then if it's still contentious, then bring it in front of Senate. I just feel a little frustrated that it's only been given to the BAC once. All these changes were made, and the BAC didn't get a chance to see it again, because I am really interested to know what the BAC would say about all these changes.
Just to chime in, every group has the option to just appeal right to Senate. So like, even though that the option does, like they can't go back to the BAC, the option was put in place through rework in the bylaws to go to Senate, so that way they wouldn't have to go back, appeal to the same body.
Can I chime in?
Yeah.
So, there's no precedent established yet. What you do tonight will be precedent setting. The only other appeals process that I'm aware of on campus is with the conduct board. And with the conduct board, there has to be grounds of new information. I don't know all this information. I was told about this by a member of the BAC who's on conduct board, but it's like if there's new information that's been presented or the entire story was not told, there are certain grounds that have to be met for an appeal to happen. I'm just saying that.
So if we reject it, can it not go back to the BAC?
This is the end of the appeal process.
Could they
But they can resubmit it.
Like, could they resubmit it? Like, start
They
over?
can resubmit.
They technically,
Yes.
Okay, so like, I'm trying to understand what the
Yeah.
implications of both voting situations would really look like.
so once you appeal, like, they wouldn't be able to like reappeal, they would have to resubmit it. So they have to go through their advisor, and then their advisor would have to approve it and then submit to the BAC.
Right.
I hate to interject here, but I understand my bias also being Canosione, but we should not be considering anybody else's procedures. And so I hate to conflict, that's the conduct board, and the BAC has like strict guidelines of how they go, and it's up to you guys to decide like whether or not you should be going along with that strict guidelines, like as Nick confirmed. So please just be mindful of that as you guys are trying to make a decision. Like again, I'm recognizing my bias here, but also be mindful of like the BAC is a completely different body than the student affairs, than the student conduct board, which deals with matters that are very different from budget issues. So just be mindful of that as well.
I also do think it's important to recognize that we are like a larger group of the student body. Like we are students that, you know, there's 40 of us on a full day. So maybe in here, like we can see like different appeals to this auction and we can see ourselves going. And the BIC is smaller, so just 40 versus, I don't know, 5.
Yeah, ultimately, I just don't really see what else they
11,
really
40 versus
expect this
11,
group
so-
to do in order to like, to solve this issue. I just don't understand, like,
If we can't judge based on content, then logically we have to judge based on fiscal responsibility.
that's true.
You
but,
can
like,
judge
what
on the
else,
like impact for the student body.
like, what else do they expect this group to do though if they've already, I mean, granted, they haven't gone back to the BAC, but I can understand why they haven't necessarily done that.
The way that it is now, I don't think is the exact format that they rejected it in. And I think they wouldn't have to change any of this and could submit this format. And I'm sure their advisor would approve it.
I don't know.
And then
I feel
the
like we
BAC
shouldn't be
could
making
do
this
it.
decision, the BAC should.
I don't know. But I feel like though the BAC might have turned it down because they believe that it's not aimed at this, or because they believe it's not aimed at the students, and that won't change if they reappeal to the BAC.
But if it went down.
I'm sorry, are there any other motions?
Motion to extend by 2 minutes.
Sure, are there any other motions? Okay, second, all in favor of a 2-minute extension? Okay, I think it is important to be cognizant that if we, like, we could be hearing anyone that's rejected by the BAC can come to us for an appeal. And so like, just not necessarily, but like, if we accept this one, not that this is why like we should deny, but like it's important to be aware that people can keep coming back to us.
I think that's a
if we
good thing,
accept it.
honestly, I'm really.
Like I don't know if we keep hearing
It's a
everything,
7-person committee.
if we keep hearing everything that gets rejected,
This was already a thing that was allowed in the past, this is just.
No, this was.
So this was something that was approved last semester by you, this body, to allow this to
We're
happen.
freshmen now, yeah.
So everybody, no, it's still fine. So this has been in place, this is just the first time that I've been approached with interest of appealing.
Yes, but also, this happened before. A couple years ago, LASSO was another organization that also made an appeal. So the appeals process isn't unprecedented, it's just in this form that it technically is.
What happened in that situation?
In that situation, it was in place for the last two. There was no option to appeal to a body besides the BAC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The option to appeal to a body besides the BAC was what was approved in the last procedure book, or part of it.
So if we approve right now, will it automatically, you will get that $8,160?
Yeah, this will come out of the BAC, the student activities from the BAC has under there.
But, and there will be no questions asked, let's say I debate, you get the money.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think like Senate, like it is very valuable that it's a bigger group and like if there's more people, I feel like they would go to this. But I do also think it's important that I don't necessarily, I think the people in the BAC ran for that role on very specific criteria that I don't feel like we all necessarily ran on. Definitely budget things, not 100%. So I think that it's different and they have a very different job than us.
I'd like to see the appeals process used as something to be done once the BAC has rejected it and it's coming to us in the form that the BAC rejected it. Like, I think that, for me, it makes a lot more sense to be an appeal of something that was rejected in a group of 11 and then you know what, take it to a bigger community and see it that way. What frustrates me a little bit is that the document is so changed and I don't have the BAC perspective on this document. It would be one thing if the BAC could give me the perspective on this document and then I could make a decision based on what I thought the BAC did correctly or incorrectly. In this decision, I feel like I'm kind of flying blind because I don't know what the BAC thinks about it.
That's true, not even having, it's not really a conversation.
yeah, that's the end of the 2 minutes. Are there any other motions?
Motion to vote.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Okay, let's go on to the procedure.
Are we doing A for agreeing with the appeal or?
And, Adam?
A is, you allow this budget, so you agree with the appeal. B is you reject, everything else is abstain. So again, A is you allow this money, B is you don't allow it. Votes. Okay, we have 10 passed, 23 reject, and 1 abstain. So it's 68% blocked.
Okay.
So that's, this got rejected.
Yep.
It did not pass.
Okay, moving on. We have the bothersome box I'm working on. Are there any creative people here that like know how to make a poster? Like a big cool poster that people would like? You would? Okay.
Communications director.
Who is that? Okay, yeah, I'd love some help advertising this and maybe looking at different ways we can share the bothersome box with people that are outside our 40 voices of complaints. But I use my food, but I already use my Chobani, so that's like a common. So like I think it's interesting. It is something that I think we should be able to brainstorm and like bring up and look at in meal times because they can be pretty frustrating. I don't know, just general ideas if anyone thinks of anything. Then group sustainability in hours, I also think, I don't know, I know it closed quite early, but that could definitely be annoying. So just some of those, maybe look into those, but we definitely, I think it's a great resource to be able to spread it with the greater community, so if you have any ideas of how we can get more voices.
Coop sustainability and hours are contradictory.
Yeah, I see that. I think they can both be, could potentially be improved at the same time. All right. And to go to the order, I think I don't really know how the bylaws work, but I was frustrated and I sense a lot of other frustration of how that appeal just went in the fact that we were hearing the new changes first. So I don't really know how we can change the bylaws, if we can change that with proposals and stuff. But
You write a bill.
do we write bills? Okay, so anyone looking, yeah, you can. I didn't know you can change bylaws with a bill. So anyone looking to do that, I definitely think.
I think it's maybe a good check though. Like if they were to have a conversation and still disagree, I think it'd be good to have that check. I wouldn't want to get rid of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think anyone would want to work on that.
Bill where you're suggesting.
What?
Please write bills because there's more problems with the bylaws than just that. You still have stuff for the SOC approving clubs and the SOC doesn't exist anymore. So if anyone wants to work on any bylaw changes whatsoever, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay, other than that, I'm sorry that was it. Are there any announcements?
I have an announcement for you guys. So tonight was a very important learning lesson for I think a lot of you, especially for you who are first years and who haven't gone through the process before. And the reason I say this is because Kate and I are frustrated when things are passed, but then when things like the BAC bylaws being passed, and then we don't necessarily critically assess them in the moment, and then we have an issue like tonight, and then we start to wonder like, well, what about the appeals process now? I think it's important because there's going to be a lot of changes that are coming down in the next few weeks to please critically assess everything that comes before you. I know you're tired. I know it's been a long day. I know it's a Tuesday. but a lot of these things have implications beyond the people in this room, and that is your responsibility as a member of this body. So again, I will acknowledge my bias towards the situation. However, I do think when we're thinking about the appeals process, this is another opportunity for you all to work on legislation with each other about how you think the appeals process to go. If there should have been a full stop before it came here, this is something that we encourage you to label that out. There's only so much that exec can do to make sure that we don't reach these problems, but like we're spread out in a lot of different places, and legislation, which is the core piece of this body, is where you guys lie. And we encourage you to take a hold of that. Use your autonomy. You all, this body is literally the full stop for a lot of things that happen on this campus that pertains to SGA, that pertains to bills, that pertains to spending. Use that. And I hope for those of you who stay along with Senate that you recognize this and use this as institutional memory, that you must critically assess every single bill that comes before you because of those implications. So I thank you all for that lengthy conversation. I think a lot of us will probably remark that this has probably been one of the most fruitful conversations we've had in a while, because we can clearly tell that you're concerned about this. But again, critically assess everything that you're doing. This is also a great spot. If you are interested, go back and look at the VAC bylaws that were passed by this body last semester and see if there are any holes that you can plug. Because a lot of this could come up in another 8 to 10 years, believe it or not, after you're long gone. So just please critically assess and recognize that when things do come before you guys, like, they're important at the end of the day. But I do want to thank you all for that fruitful conversation. I hope you guys learned a lot from this, but just be aware. You have to look at everything and think about the long run, the long term, not just sitting here and getting it over with. Like, as much as we enjoy seeing things getting passed, I'd rather let you all leave here knowing that, like, you are okay with your decision and not just pushing it off to the side. That's what's important. But other than that, I don't have any further announcements. Oh, Luke had something.
Hey everyone, I'm putting together a central SGA calendar so like folks in the Senate know what's going on in class council and everybody's on the same page about everything. So if there are any events that you are planning or you think should be on SGA's radar, send them to me, let me know. My name is Luke Myers, so you can group me, DM me, send me an email, whatever. And then I'll get those in the calendar and I'll probably have that out to you all by the end of the week.
All right. Thanks so much. I'm sorry that was an incredibly long meeting. Wow. If you didn't get the agenda this week, please stay behind and I'll add you to the mailing list. But other than that, Chair will be in favor of a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Mind just writing here.
Tape for Sarah.
Hey, Riley.
What? Can you get me some mail?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And then, would you be available either this Sunday or next Sunday?
Yeah, to meet up and
To meet, I'd love to meet up some other time, but to help younger senators.
yeah, I can help.
Sounds good. Awesome. I'll let you know, so I'll send out probably to you and Ben. If you could, you guys might be interested.
Yeah, we'll probably have to.
Teach them side-by-side bills.
I can't actually.
Could have said I need your help bringing that body.
Oh, so yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what the possibility of going back for a charge of something.
A lot.
Oh, a lot. It always works.
Now, if only we had like, now if only we could have another.
So basically, the 8 committees I want to bring back are academic affairs, governance affairs, and student affairs, which were old committees. And then I want to start a dining committee